I was hurting so bad, and I was every time I would bend over, it would feel better. Like it would just like take the weight off my legs for a little bit and off my lower back with the weight vest. And so I kept like pretty recent, like every like few feet, it felt like I was like trying to bend over and stretch and just like get some relief from all of this pain. And I didn't want to start taking Advil and stuff so early in the run because I'm like, dude, it's going to stop working and I've got a long way to go. So that day too was such a fight. But I remember at the beginning of the day, I was bent over, kind of like stretching out my hamstrings, and I threw up, and I just got these jolts of pain that were like, felt like they were in my femur, literally. And I was like, for the first time ever, maybe I was like, I don't know what to do with this pain. Like, I don't know where to put this. Like, this is fucking awful. And I looked at my GPS and I had like 156 miles to go or something. Another episode of Lionheart Radio with your host, Rick Alexander. Today I wanted to talk to you about the run I just did. I'm going to call this one a case study in epic endeavors. And the reason is because for me, this was an epic endeavor. It was so much bigger than anything I had done in the past. And so my goal with this one is to sort of tease out all of the lessons that I learned and kind of go through it in chronological order. And then maybe you could use this as you take on your own big projects, whether you want to write a book or start a business or run a marathon or whatever it is, like whatever your next thing is. Like there's always lessons I think we can learn from each other. And so I'm going to do my best to sort of tease out all of the lessons I can from this, because it took up such a big part of my life. From this run, and then I'll also do my best to just kind of recap the run and make it a little bit entertaining as much as I can. And so for this one, I divided this into pre-run, the execution, and then post-run, because those were three very distinct phases. Anytime you do something big, there's obviously a planning phase going into it. Then there's the execution of it, where things go right, wrong, or maybe not what you expected whatsoever. And then we get into the post-run after that. And that's where we can look back as like almost a post-mortem and look at, was this event successful? Did it do all of the things that I wanted it to do? Did it serve as something in the world that I wanted it to, essentially? All right, so when we look at pre-run, I guess first, so those of you that don't know, even though I really probably shamelessly promoted it too much because I was trying to raise so much money for this thing, but for those of you that don't know, what I did is I ran 247 miles in body armor. Now, the reason I chose to do what I did, and this, as you look to what you want to do next, as you look to take on your next big project, you really have to think. You have to think hard about the motivations that are behind whatever it is that you're doing. So I chose to go big, right? I wanted to make something so big because it was also sort of an ode to my military service as I got out, kind of a last thing I did. I wanted to go so big that it could not be denied, that people would hear about it and just be like, holy shit. And then I would be able to raise as much money as I possibly could for these Gold Star families, which is essentially what I was raising money for. Now, one thing I will say is when you put something out into the world, it may or may not get the response that you're hoping for. And that's okay sometimes. Sometimes you just have to sort of learn from that and move on. So one of the things that I thought was going to happen is this thing would get picked up by everybody. I've gotten media coverage in the past for things I've done, so I thought with this, like, it's so big and it's such a good cause, at least in my opinion. And I didn't bounce it off too many people. I kind of decided, I was like, nope, this is what I'm doing. Maybe I should. I think maybe having a team of people to bounce your ideas off is a really, really good idea. And that's just advisors, like people in your family, friends, like no matter what, it doesn't have to be anything formal, but just a really good structure. And sometimes I get real headstrong and I decide what I'm going to do. And then I just put it out into the world, and that's basically what I did with this one because I was so sure. And so I would say probably lesson number one is like really develop a good team of advisors, even if it's nothing formal, just to bounce your ideas off. And we do that in life anyway most of the time if we're not headstrong idiots like myself. And so when I chose to go with this thing that was so big, what I realized almost instantly is that it was going to be so hard. 247 miles is such a long distance, and then you add weight vest. It's so hard that it's hard for people to conceptualize how hard it's actually going to be. And that really backfired on me because I remember gauging people's reactions last year when I just ran the 205 miles. and just seeing people like, whoa, that's crazy. So I thought, like, for this, like, I'm really upping the ante. I'm making this 10x fold. Plus, it's on concrete. Plus, it's, I don't have aid stations. It's not this big event. It's just me on the side of the road. And people couldn't conceptualize the size of it a lot of times. Like, you have no reference for how bad that's going to hurt. And so for me, once I got into the training, I realized how bad it actually was going to hurt, and like the real price that I was going to pay to finish this thing. And then when I measured that up against people's reactions, I was like, oh, I fucked up. I screwed up because nobody really gets it. No, it's like it's too big. But I kind of, at that moment, as I was having trouble getting momentum around it or getting people to even give a shit, and the training was simultaneously kind of wrecking me, I really had some big decisions to make going into the race. One of the things that happened, I did a 12-hour run in the body armor in order to train for this thing. And it beat me up so bad, more than any day of running probably ever has. I mean, it really put me down for a couple weeks. And even after, I went and I did yoga, and I remember realizing that I no longer had the top of my breath. So right now, if you take a full breath, just like that, I couldn't get to the top of the breath. Like, I had a very shallow breath no matter how hard I tried. And so I spent days doing ART and structural work and soft tissue work and just really trying to get in there with foam rollers and trigger point. And no matter what I did, I could not get my full breath back. And so I was like, that really freaked me out. And I still don't know necessarily whether it was sort of from impingement from wearing the vest for so long, or if it was from almost rewiring of motor patterns, because your lungs actually can't expand. And so out of a survival mechanism, so perhaps that bundle of nerves that controls the actual, depth of your breath, perhaps that was somehow rewired as a survival mechanism. And I'm not entirely sure, but all I knew is, oh fuck, I'm probably in trouble here, because I've gone really hard in this vest for only 12 hours. And I mean, I only went like 40 miles or something like that. So I knew that I was really going to be in trouble. So the decisions I had to make were, one, I decided actually to scale the training back. So my original plan is I was going to lead up to this like I would any other race, except I would just wear a vest for all this stuff. And then when I realized the actual toll that it was taking on my body, I realized that I was going to take the vest off. I was just going to train normal, do the best I could, wear the vest every now and then to get a feel for it. But whether it was smart or not, who knows? But my thought process was, I'm going to pay so dearly for this, I'd rather just pay once. Like, I would rather not screw myself up week after week going into the run. So, that was a decision I made. And I was like, well, I've already committed to this. I've already committed to the world. I've already started raising money. So like, it's going to happen, whether I've made good or bad decisions leading up. And I think sometimes that's the point we get to, right? Like, we have something we want to do in the world, but then the obstacles mount on so damn hard. And it's like, it's hard to see a way forward. And I am one for finesse. I believe in soft skills. I believe in navigating life, but with a bit of finesse. I believe that not everything is a nail, so not everything requires a hammer. But I also think that there's a time in your life where you've decided to do something where the obstacles mount up and you say, if there's not a way, I will fucking make a way. And that was kind of where I got. I'm like, this is going to happen. I'm going to send it either way. And that like anger almost fueled the run leading up to it in a lot of ways, because I was so frustrated by how bad the training was going, the response it was getting. I had raised, very little money going into it, just like a couple, I think it was like maybe $2,000 before the race, and my goal was $5,000. So it was like, I don't know, people are just not having it. I was like, I am going to make this thing happen. I sort of got to that point, maybe a little bit driven by ego, but regardless, I had to get somewhere that was going to let me finish this thing. The other thing that happened, because people, I think, couldn't really conceptualize, I got no media coverage, which is wild, because I've gotten a lot of media coverage for stuff in the past, and I couldn't get anybody to care. I got, a couple people to care that said they wanted to pick it up. They ended up blowing off the story. One person actually, like local media in North Carolina, actually blew us off and just literally didn't show up. And that was like that was a hit. Like, that was a hit on the ego. It was like, I'm not sure what to do next, other than the fact that I said I'm going no matter what. And I just got to do my best to promote this thing. So yeah, we got no media coverage. We didn't get a lot of money going into the race, like as far as that was our goal, raising money for this organization. Training didn't go well. And then the last thing that didn't go well was support. I could not get any companies to support this thing. And I wrote like hundreds, it feels like, of emails to people, and I didn't get one person that gave a damn about supporting this event. which was wild too. And I've been trying to figure out why. Maybe I thought maybe it's too risky because I'm on the side of the road and it's not organized enough, or maybe they've researched me and my presence and I say the word fuck too much, so maybe they decided not to work with me based on a personal level. Like I honestly don't know. I've kind of racked my brain trying to figure it out, but I think I'm just pointing this out there because we had zero support. Like we had nobody that was willing to help out in this thing as far as sponsors go. The only one that came even close was Tailwind, and then they randomly sent me an email that was like, "We're not going to work with you," and I was like, "Great, of course you're not." And so I was like, "Well, I'll just, it's going to be self-sponsored." But like, I made a post about being self-sponsored after this thing because I felt like so sort of empowered by it, because it was like, dude, fuck everybody else. Like the world sometimes is just not going to understand, and that doesn't mean you should do that thing less, even if it feels like that in the moment. And so I just went for it. I was like, okay, no sponsors, no media. We're going to do our best to cover this thing. I will, do my best on Instagram. And, I don't sound like I have a huge following, but I'm just going to do my best to put this thing out there. The last thing I'm going to fucking do is quit. And we're going to, 9 a.m. on Wednesday on the 10th, we're going to run off. We're going to take off. And one of the things I love about adventure, like really love, I was telling my crew this, is like, dude, the second you step off on a great adventure, you have no idea what's going to transpire in the middle. Like no idea. And that's the thing, that unknown, contending with that unknown is one of the greatest feelings in the world. And one of the reasons I love ultra endurance sports, and also one of the reasons I tell everybody else, like that is life. Like that is what life is. You are always contending with the unknown and trying to be flexible and trying to figure it out and trying to take the obstacles and make a path forward. And so it's a very like acute physical manifestation of that. And I really, really do enjoy that. So we take off on the 10th. First day went really well. My buddy Dan literally drove down from Massachusetts, slept in his car to run the first 20 miles with me, and he did it in body armor. So I was like, this guy is a stud. Like he's the real hero here. So it was really cool. Like it was a really nice day. It was a little bit hot. I knew I was losing sweat pretty fast. And I felt good. And it's like always at the beginning of a really long ultra, it's that balance of do you push too hard, or do you hold back? And it's like you want to hold back because you want more in the tank. At the same time, you want to go and you're feeling good. So that's always a hard balance for me. I thought I balanced it pretty well in hindsight, I guess because of the vest I maybe didn't have just because day 2 was so rough. But I clocked like 70 some miles in the first day. So I was like, it was a strong day for me. I felt good. Other than losing a lot of sweat, it was fine. I did that first night by myself. Toward the end of the night, it was like rainy. And, you always hit a low somewhere between 2 and 3 or 4 in the morning. And so I was really, I think, by myself out in the backwoods, like of North Carolina. I was like, kind of like, I was pretty low at that point. One good thing that happened going into that night, I ran by a church. And just for the record, there are more churches than people in the South. But I ran by this church, and this guy came out on the lawn, and he was like, "Hey, how far are you running?" So I said it in passing, and he was like, "Well, come in here and grab something to eat." I was like, no. But then I realized, I was like, I'm hurting. I'm going to be, and I have a couple more hours by myself. So I was like, could I come in there? And he was like, yeah, of course. So I went in there and I drank a bunch of Coca-Cola and water and ate brownies. And then they donated. I was just like, man, that was incredible. Because, the whole day I was having a dim view of humanity because people were so pissed that I was on the side of the road that they had to turn their little T-Rex arms on their steering wheel to go around me. And I just thought what a ridiculously inappropriate reaction to me suffering on the side of the road for something. It's not like they know why I'm doing it or what I'm doing. All they know is their inconvenience. But it was just so ridiculous to kind of be a part of that. And then the other thing is the dogs that are not chained up. It was every mile I felt like dogs sprinted into the street to bark at me or try to bite me. And I was just like, does anybody here care about their fucking animals? Because it's every single mile. So I will say, going that first day, spirits were up. I was still fresh. I was still moving good. But it was frustrating. I got really frustrated with people. But there's a Baptist church somewhere in North Carolina that really, really turned my day around. And so then I kind of pushed on, went into the first night at hit 4 a.m. And I actually decided on this one, that I was going to sleep every single day for, it just at least 30 minutes up to 45 minutes. I might have done one that was a little bit longer and nothing over an hour though. But the reason is because on the first 200 I did, I ran it without sleep and I really fell apart. I was hallucinating. You can go back and listen to the recap of that run, but it got really bad. And so for this one, I was because I'm on the side of the road, the last thing I wanted to be doing is hallucinating around cars that can kill me within an inch of my life, you know? And so I was like, I'm just going to shut it down 30 minutes per night. And so that's what I did. Got in that first one. And that was another learning point in this. I was going to do this self-supported because I'm a headstrong idiot sometimes. I would have been so screwed. Like, I relied on Tim, my crew and media guys so damn much. And then everybody else that came out and supported. Like, I thought, like, just let me put this on my back and do it. No, that would have been a failure. That would have been so stupid. Like, nobody's self-made in this world. Stop acting like it. There's probably a time and a place, but for this event, I would not have. It just would not have gone well. So 4 a.m., I was so happy to see the crew and then to just shut it down for a half hour. So heading into day 2, I slept for about 30 minutes. Got up probably around 4:35. Headed out for day 2. Also, it's worth pointing out I would take care of all my feet and stuff like that process, like before I'd go to sleep. So I'd wake up on like better feet, drain blisters, whatever was going wrong, and then I'd head out for day 2. So heading out for day 2, I instantly knew today is not going to be like yesterday. It was hard for me to get a rhythm going, and I started getting GI issues, which I always do in ultras. I really got to work on my intra-race nutrition programming. But I could not stop throwing up and shitting. Like, it was really bad. I just couldn't get it together, which made holding any kind of a pace hard. And then of course the vest, like bouncing up and down on your stomach. It was a really, really difficult day. And, the pain started that day too, really bad. Like, for whatever reason, the first like 100K or so, I was not pain free, but it just wasn't that bad like it normally would be. But man, I guess it was just saving it, because day 2, it was like in the bone pain. I mean, it was like my arches hurt, and it was nothing like, it wasn't really like blister pain or anything like that. It was literally the bones just hurt, and I think that's from the extra weight and being on concrete. But I remember, I mean, I only made it like, I think I only traveled like 30 miles in day 2 or something. Like, it was not good. But I remember there was a moment in day 2. Was like the beginning of a really big lesson in pain for me. I was hurting so bad, and every time I would bend over, it would feel better. Like, it would just like take the weight off my legs for a little bit and off my lower back with the weight vest. And so I kept like pretty recent, like every like few feet, it felt like I was like trying to bend over and stretch and just like get some relief from all of this pain. And I didn't want to start taking Advil and stuff so early in the run, because I'm like, dude, it's going to stop working and I've got a long way to go. So that day 2 was such a fight. But I remember at the beginning of the day, I was bent over, kind of like stretching out my hamstrings, and I threw up, and I just got these jolts of pain that felt like they were in my femur, literally. And I was like, for the first time ever, maybe, I was like, I don't know what to do with this pain. Like, I don't know where to put this. Like, this is fucking awful. And I looked at my GPS, and I had like 156 miles to go or something. And I just remember being like, I'm fucked. Like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I don't know where to put this pain. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to get a pace going. Like, I'm going to be out here for years. And then, you know, I've talked about this on the show before, but if you decide prior to that event that quitting's not on the table, then you got to live by it. And so I just sat there and I was like, well, so be it. I'll be out here for years then. I guess that's how it goes. But that moment stuck out, because it hurt so bad, and I couldn't stop throwing up, and I didn't know what else to do, and I had so long to go. So I kind of, that day, like, we started getting rain, and then we started getting word that a hurricane had hit Florida, turned right, headed north, and come right up behind us, and by the time it got to us, it was going to be a tropical storm. And so my crew was really, Tim and all the people that were sort of supporting us, you know, through online, through the phones, whatever. They were all very much wanting me to stop. They were like, dude, shut it down, restart at 7 a.m. tomorrow. It'll be fine. You'll sleep. For me, I was like, that was like never on the table, because I didn't want to shut it down and then have to re-go through that process of like going back through pain. Because my thought is, I'm so deep in the pain cave right now. This pain will have to quit soon. As long as I don't, I should be okay. And so the thought of shutting it down to me for that reason alone was just really bothering me. But then as it became more imminent, we sort of went back and forth. And the thing we decided on was we're going to shut it down for like 4 hours, I think, and then we'll restart at 7 p.m. that night, and then we'll just keep going. And so I ran up until the storm hit. Then I have a client, Rachel, who is North Carolina, and she's like, just come over. And so we went over to her house, ate. I slept for another like 40 minutes, and then we got back in the car, drove back out. We still didn't really time it that good because when we started running that night, it was basically at the end of the hurricane or the end of the tropical storm. But I also had two friends come out, and God bless them for driving straight into a hurricane where everybody else was leaving to start running with me. So that night we really like sloshed through the rain and the wind of night two. And then, getting into an aid station around, again, just a homemade aid station that we had at a gas station around 4:30 again in the morning, something like that, 4:30. So we ran through the night, had a good night of running. I mean, wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as the day. So made up some good time, or made some good time. And then, this guy, Jake, who literally was following the thing on Instagram, drove into this hurricane to run with us. He didn't know me, had no plans, just a great dude wanting to be part of something cool. And so that was a really cool experience. And then my buddy Chris came out, and he had decided he'd stay with me for 24 hours. So that was great too. He really helped me with my feet and stuff like that as well, because I was like starting to like not be so good at taking care of my feet. Like once you get to a certain point of fatigue, you kind of don't want to dick with anything anymore. And the other thing that had happened at the end of day two is my feet had swelled up to the size bigger that I brought. So I brought a shoe size that was too big for me, thinking when my feet swell, I could put them in. Just from what I've learned in the past, I did that, and then I outswelled those two. And thank God Chris had another pair that was even another size bigger that I was able to put on, and I wore those for the rest of the run. So I literally ran in a shoe size way bigger than what I normally would. I told somebody, I'm like, dude, my feet are goldfish. Put them in a bigger bowl, they're just going to keep growing. Like I don't know if this is ever going to end. But it worked out because I ran in his for the rest of the race. So it was fine. Day three was pretty uneventful. I did get worried about rhabdo in day three. That morning I got up from the aid station, and I keep saying aid station. It was a gas station. I got up to pee, and I've heard all of the hallmark signs of rhabdo. Like it's that tea, your urine looks like tea. It's like that tea bag color. And I was always like, I don't know, I've never had that. I've never really seen it. Like I understand what you're saying, but I've never seen it. I peed in this urinal, and I was like, oh, fuck, that is pure brown. Like this is, like that's blood. This is not good. And so I kind of consulted with a couple people, and I just made the decision to drink way more that day. So I was like bringing Pedialyte with me on the road, plus in addition to my normal stuff, my Camelback, whatever. And that's why I chugged it, and it kind of got me out of it. Like everything worked out. So that was cool. I don't know how, I don't know why. Clearly I think if it were an advanced case of rhabdo, I would not have been able to get out of it like that. So, I will say, I don't know what was going on there, but we had some clear signs going on, that luckily I was able to avoid. Another thing that happened on that morning, going into day three was, I woke up after about a half hour, and it was cold. Like the hurricane had come through and brought all the cold weather with it. So behind it was like instant fall as soon as this thing passed through. So all the hot weather was gone. But waking up, I was all curled up in a blanket for 30 minutes, and I realized how cold it was, and I wanted to go back to bed so bad. Like I did not want to start hobbling out in the cold, let all my blisters re-break and my scabs and my chafing re-rip, and I was like, fuck, I just want to sleep. And, this is 3 nights now without any real sleep. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going back to sleep for another hour. I don't care. And I laid down, and this was a really wild thing. Some voice inside of me was like, you can go back to sleep, but those 130 miles aren't fucking going anywhere. So they still got to be run. So go back and sleep if you want, bitch, but just know this ain't going to change anything. And that voice, like, I couldn't go to sleep. It kept me, it kept me up. I was like, damn it, all right, I gotta go. And so finally I tried to sleep for like 5 minutes, and I was like, you know what, it's true. These miles have to be done, and sleeping isn't gonna put them off. Sometimes we want to do that in the face of responsibility. It's like, well, let me just go do something mindless and just put it off. But at the end of the day, it doesn't get you anywhere. And I guess that's what that voice was telling me. So got my shit together, said goodbye to Jake. Chris decided to keep running with me for the remainder of the day. And going into day 3 was actually pretty eventful. The only thing that really happened on day 3 was that the route was on the side of a highway, essentially. I guess it wasn't technically a highway, which is why we were allowed to be on it. But I didn't do a good job scouting because the only weekend that I was gonna bicycle the course and pre-ride it to make sure it was good. We got a hurricane that weekend the month before, so it was literally the only weekend I had. So I kind of ran this thing blind, other than looking online. And so there was a good stretch of, I don't know, maybe 10 miles, 15 miles where it was just like side of the road, but no breakdown lane, and it was only grass on the side. So every time a car would come, you'd have to jump off the road into the grass. And then I got chiggers from the grass. So then my feet and ankles were itching like crazy. And so that was just a really frustrating thing, because it's like 3 days in, I'm barely making progress as it is. And, the chiggers are just tearing me up. So I don't know. I guess it was just an interesting thing. It was hard to stay excited or stay motivated in the face of that, because I couldn't get any momentum going because I'm diving off the highway constantly. But it worked out. I mean, we persevered, and it was good conversation. And luckily, Chris was, he's done ultras, so he did a good job of just talking to me and keeping my head in the game. And we just talked about life, and that's kind of one of my favorite things about these, anyways, the deep conversations you have. So I mean, we really made it. We made it work out, I think, that day 3. One of the other things that happened at the end of day 1, my traps hurt so bad from the body armor. I couldn't lift my arms. I couldn't even put the body armor on without sliding it on super gently, because the bruising felt so bad. And when I got up for day 2, it was completely gone. Not one little ounce of pain. That was contributing to my worry about the rhabdo, because I'm like, what just happened? Where did that pain go? It literally completely left. And I don't still know why that would happen at all, because it was so excruciating. I couldn't even touch it, the bruising, and then it just went away. So the reason I'm saying that is I went into day 3. Chris's wife is a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and actually we've had her on the show, Kylie. And she was like, do you want to get a little bit of work done? So she was working on my upper back and my traps, and she was like, you're actually fine. Nothing's tight. It's pretty loose. You're doing pretty well. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why. It was so bad. For a little bit, I couldn't remember when I couldn't even breathe, and I couldn't even lift my arms. And then somehow, it went away. I don't know. I think I just take it as a testament to, this idea that your body will do what you tell it to do. And I've proven that to myself so many times. But you get in the middle of that pain cave and you fucking forget it pretty fast. You're like, this is not going to end well. But some part of you just has to know, you got to just keep moving. You got to just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Because time and time again, I'm proven, my body proves to me that this actually, this too shall pass. Your body's going to adapt. It's going to be hell. It might take forever. That pain cave might be so much deeper than you imagined it would be. And when you're in there, it is so hard to get any kind of perspective because you have no distance from the pain. But I will tell you this, in my experience, every single time, you just keep moving and it just works out. And so, got a little work done, left night 3 into the night, had a great run. It was a really, really great moment for me. It was I sort of hit a point where I think because I'd been moving so slow all day because of traffic, where there was no more traffic on the road and things were just, it was a beautiful night and there were wild animals. I saw bobcat, saw a bunch of deer, and I was just listening to music and just running. It was just a great night out there. Occasionally I'd shut my headlamp off just because there were so many stars. There was no light pollution where I was. Just had a really good night 3, and then my buddy Jordan came and joined me for the last couple of nights. Nothing too eventful in those nights. I mean, another just testament to how cool humans are. My buddy Jordan, who had never run an ultra, he came out, did about 60 miles with me. He was sick, and just totally wrecked by the end of this thing. I mean, as anybody that would come run 60 miles without training would be. But man, it was great having him, because again, we just talk about life and just keep driving on. It was just, I don't know, I just really, really appreciate humans that are willing to do that. One crazy thing did happen. I tried to skip a sleep station at the 4th night, I think, or 3rd night, and I was like, oh, let me just push it for another hour. It was 4 when I would normally go to sleep for 30 minutes, but I was like, let me just get to the next, couple miles down the road. So it's I'll sleep at 6:37. So we pushed it, and within an hour, I regretted it so badly. I was like, the hallucinations were mild. It wasn't like this crazy thing, but I kept thinking there were like tractors on the road, and I kept thinking like mouse were running by, and I kept like, the worst part about it for me about sleep deprivation after a certain amount of time is you sort of forget what you're doing. And so one point we ran off the highway. We actually took an off ramp. And then I looked up and I had no idea where we were. And then I had a moment where I didn't even know what I was doing. And then I looked at my phone and it just said error. The GPS was like not working. And I was like, oh fuck. Like I could not, it took me a real minute to grasp reality and figure out where actually we were. And then I realized like, oh, okay, we literally just ran off the highway right here. But it was it was a hard thing. So I pushed it. And I think that's the night I slept an hour. Once I got back to the car to the next place, I had a cot set up. I slept for an hour, got up, ate breakfast. And when I woke up, my brain was still like, that's a really funny thing that happens on these. Like when you're running 20 hours a day and you're only sleeping 30 minutes, your brain, like, it just, your cognitive ability is so declined. It's ridiculous. I remember I'm trying to talk to Tim and Eva who are with me, who are crewing at this point. And I couldn't even like put sentences together, and I'm like, I couldn't like say how I was feeling. It was a really weird moment. I was just like, I got to get back on the road. Like, let me just drink this coffee and get the hell out of here. So that's what I did. Somebody who owned that gas station was super cool and like made us breakfast and let us use the bathrooms and all that stuff to get cleaned up. And then I hit the road, and as soon as I hit the road, I had another just perfect moment. Like legs didn't hurt. I hit my stride, and I really felt great for that whole day. Almost, that was a pretty incredible feeling. It was like that runner's high that you're hoping to get to that sometimes you don't, you know? And so it was like just a really great moment. I had clarity in my thoughts. I felt good. It was like a cool 70 something day, like sunny, just really beautiful. Like it felt like the demons that were trying to make me quit fucked off. That's what it felt like. It felt like finally I won the battle. It was like, they're gone. I'm here. And now it's nothing left to do but execute. So getting to that place mentally is really important to me. And it really worked out this time. Also, heading into that final day, I didn't have reception, so it was a little frustrating having to post all the time. One of the things I love about these things is I get to just shut my phone off and be in the mountains and worry about nothing other than forward progress. But with this thing, because we had people following and because we were trying to raise money, like I felt it important that I updated everybody on the status. And so, that was sort of a frustrating thing when I was really low. I didn't update as much, obviously. But it really worked because I did a bunch of Instagram lives and stuff, and we crushed our fundraising goal. We went a couple thousand over what we were hoping to raise, and they really started coming in. People like really stepped up, $1,000 donations. Like it was an incredible experience to be around. But going into that day, I lost cell phone reception, which was really interesting because I was like checking it, but I didn't have it. I was like, well, I want to do an update, but I couldn't. But I remember I was like 50 miles from Virginia Beach or something like that, like 60 miles out. I had just crossed into Virginia, and that was an incredible moment, like really incredible moment. And I got cell phone reception just for a minute. And when I did, I had so many people that had DM'd me and tagged me and just said like support and reached out. And it was a moment, I mean, when you're running these things, like you're raw, like you are not, whatever rugged exterior you think you have, it's fucking way gone. Like you've been running for days. And so, I cried twice in this thing. The first time was day 2 when I was just like running and the pain was just so bad. There were like sort of like slight tears rolling down my cheeks. And then this moment where I got reception back for just a minute and I saw so much support and so many people from all over the country like cheering me on and like just saying like good job and you got this, good luck. Like it made so much of a difference. I can't even thank everybody that supported this thing enough because that moment was just such an incredible moment. I couldn't even share it with somebody. Like it was just by myself. It was just a very personal thing. Super cool. Yeah. So I don't know. That was a good moment I wanted to mention. Going into night 4, we were only, this is probably the wildest part of the whole thing besides the hurricanes and the pain and everything else. We were 22 miles from the end. My crew had asked me, are you worried about running through Suffolk or Portsmouth downtown, like the ghetto areas? And I was like, no, not at all. And I was so naive and so stupid. And I was just like, no, I'm not worried. No one's going to fuck with me. Like, I'm a pretty big guy wearing body armor. I think I'm fine. Yeah, I was wrong. I was way wrong. It's like 4 a.m. We had started turning into a death march again. We were trying to find a place to sleep. And everywhere we looked super sketchy. And we were like slowly putting it together, me and Jordan, as we were like going into the ghetto because we saw a high-speed chase not between a cop and a car, just two cars, like literally jumping curbs and medians chasing each other. And then we saw every vehicle like slow down and look at us and then take off. And that was weird. And then there's like a van with its hazards on that was just doing laps like almost around us. And I was like, oh fuck, like this is getting real sketchy. So Tim comes up in the support car. We're like, okay, there's a place up here. We're going to try to just get there as fast as we can. He leaves, and as soon as he leaves, we make our way out, and a guy in a bike, kid in a bike, starts riding up. Now, I just saw a kid in a bike. I was like, well, it's just a kid riding a bike. Who cares? But my buddy Jordan said something like, oh, shit. And but the way he said it, like the tone in his voice made me realize, like, oh, this is not good. Like, there's something serious here. So he kind of like high alert mode, and he rides up next to us. And he says something. This kid is like probably 13 or 15 years old. And he won't take his hand out of his pocket. And he says something about the moon. And I'm like, I'm trying to build rapport. And, to be honest, like any kind of 13 to 15-year-old boy that's like, I probably can build rapport with, like talking about the military and talking about different stuff. So I was trying to tell him what we were doing and why we were doing it. And this is a moment for me where I've never really talked to somebody with such disregard for human life. Like it was like that quintessential moment when you realize you're talking to a psychopath because there's no rapport being built because they don't care. They're not looking at you like you're a human. And I remember thinking like, fuck this kid. He is not here. And he says something about, he's like, you shouldn't be here. And not in a way of like protecting us, being like, now I'm going to show you why you shouldn't be here. And he was like, we lost somebody out here last week. And I was like, oh geez, I'm like trying to build rapport and talk to him, and it's not happening. And he pulls up in front of us and stops. And he's like, you have $5? And I was like, nope. He's like, you have $5 if I pull this gun out of my pocket? And I was like, dude, I don't have $5. Like, I don't have anything. I'm running across, like I'm running north. Like I don't have anything. And I made the decision to rush this kid. And I was like, I'm just going to rush him and beat his face in. That's what's going to happen here. But as I made that decision, and I credit Jordan with essentially saving my life in this moment, it was because he said something, I don't know what it was, but like wait or back up or something, as this kid goes to pull this thing. And I realized like in that moment, had I done what I was going to do, I would have closed the distance and he would have just shot me super easily. But most people, like if you're not familiar with shooting a handgun, shooting somebody with a handgun, like if you're not, it's pretty hard. Like especially two people that are moving, like if I get more than like 10 meters away from you, like you're really fucked. You're probably not gonna be able to hit me unless it's an accident. And so the way he said it made us both sort of back up out in a way. So we were like opening the distance, the gap between him and from each other. So he would have to like, figure it out. So he got on his bike to try to like come around and head us the other way. And he's like, I'm not gonna shoot you. And I'm like, well, fucking feels like you are, man. And it was interesting in that moment because I was wearing body armor. So I was like trying to hide my head a little bit behind my plate. So I'm like thinking, okay, probably I'm going to get shot in the hip here or the ass. And so I was like looking at where I could jump to or dodge to once this kid fucking pulled this trigger. And all this is happening. And right as this is happening, Tim, he sees it and he comes sprinting up in the crew car. Well, at that moment, the kid realized, because I think he had saw us talking in that car earlier, at that moment, the kid realized we weren't alone, and I think that's what freaked him out, because me and Jordan were talking, like, why didn't he just shoot us? Like, every part of that situation said we were about to get shot, and it seemed like that's all that kid cared about, was just, like, proving his territory or whatever the fuck people in that situation do, and I think that's what freaked him out. He realized, like, oh, fuck, there's unknowns here, like, there's another car or whatever. And so he gets on his bike and literally sprints off once the car comes up. And so I called Tim and I'm like, get over here now. He like finishes, comes over to us. We jump in the support car and get the hell out of there. And I'm like, we're only 22 miles from home. And everybody's like, well, are you going to come back out in the day and restart in this point? And I was like, fuck no. Like I just got out of the military unscathed. I'm not getting fucking shot in Portsmouth 22 miles from home. Like, no, I don't care. So we just found a point that was like in the country out Chesapeake, 22 miles away from where we were going to end. And we literally just restarted there. I was like, dude, it's fine. I have nothing to prove. Like, this is all for charity. I'm not getting shot. This is ridiculous. I'm still going to do the distance. And so that's what we did. We went 22 miles out in the country, found a point, slept for a few minutes, got up, and then made the final push home. And it was beautiful. Like, I was really glad instead of like all ghetto on our last day, we had just rolling countryside that was like incredible sunrise. It was really, really beautiful, and it was a great way to head into Virginia Beach. And like, we were running hard that day. Me and Jordan were both. I mean, we were both hurting, but ran super hard and finished up at like 1. So the whole thing took 100 hours and 10 minutes, which was an incredible thing because, my goal was sub 100 hours. I wanted to keep this thing as close to what would be acceptable in an ultra anyway of that caliber. And so if you were to look at ultras, I tried to think 240 miles, like the Moab 240, I think it's got a 200 and maybe 12-hour time limit or something like, or 112-hour time limit or something like that. So I was like, if I could get in 100 hours, I know that would be acceptable. That would still be like, something that would be considered acceptable in this space. Add the body armor like that, probably because there's not a lot of hills, but I am wearing body armor, and that's a huge wild card. So I just had a personal goal of that. So I ended up 100 hours and 10 minutes. I was super happy with that. And then I wanted to hang out after, but I was so wrecked. I basically fell asleep. I got a hotel room right like 10 feet from where I finished. So here's an interesting thing. Post-mortem, looking at the run, looking at everything that went wrong, I sort of had a moment where I was like wondering, like, is this worth it? Was this the right thing to do? I thought about that a lot in the middle of it because there was so much pain. And especially leading up to it, that's when I really thought about it. Like, was this something that I should be doing right now? Am I just wrecking myself for nothing that nobody cares about? But I will tell you, like, I just did a show this week called Stress Test Your Ethos. And the reason I did that is like, do you have things that you believe in the world, and have you tested those things? So a lot of things that I've said before that, like, about outlasting pain and about if you have something to do, fuck what people say, you should just do it. There comes a time where you just have to persevere and endure. Like, I have all these things that I believe. I really had to put them to the test, to like the ultimate test in this one. And I'm really happy to report that I still believe what I believe. I think it didn't matter. It's nobody else's job to get it. You're going to put something out in this world. They might not understand. They might not get it. But that doesn't make it any less beneficial or useful. Or it certainly doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. If you've been given an idea to do something good in the world, it's always, in my opinion, your job to do that thing and then let the universe sort out where that lands, And so I was frustrated leading into this run. Like, the training didn't go well, the promo didn't go well, and I could not have been any more happy with how the damn thing went. I mean, it hurt. Like, I paid for it. I lost a week where I couldn't work. I couldn't work on the show. Like, they couldn't write. There were so many. I gave up a lot for this thing, and I questioned myself a lot for this thing, as you will when you take on any kind of epic endeavor. But I will say the momentum from this thing was so great. And it wasn't just, for me, I was happy to be the catalyst for so many people caring about such a really cool cause. But beyond that, I mean, it was more than that. The other thing that it was other people got, they got to, you never know the ripple effect of what you're doing. For me, that is just as important as anything else. Like, to know why you're doing what you're doing is just so important because other people are going to glean from that something. And if that something that they glean from that makes them go out and do something great in the world as well, then you were orders of magnitude more successful than had you just stayed on the couch. And at the end of the day, that's what matters, because that's what makes the world a better place. And I think just all of the messages I've gotten, all the people that have written me to be like, I'm running a triathlon now, I'm doing this now, I'm raising money for this now, like, so many of those, that is what, to me, made it worth it. The cause made it worth it. Like, the why behind it made it really worth it for me. Like, I had met with Gold Star Teen Adventures and Jessica, the hustle behind that organization, and her daughter, who've been deeply affected by the cause and by the war. And so to meet them, like, that put a why behind it that made the pain very endurable. And then the part of it that I wasn't expecting was the ripple effect afterward of all these other people that were like ready to do big things in life. And so I guess if I could sum it all up, I say it a lot on the show, but it's nobody's job to believe in you. You're going to go do big things in this world if you feel called to them, and it might not start out like you wanted. It might not go like you wanted. It might take all of you. It might take more of you than you could have ever imagined. It might hurt more than you could have ever imagined. But if you can hold that conviction of why you're doing it, in my experience, it'll work out. You're just going to have to suffer for it a little bit. But honestly, like, who's not worth suffering for? Think about the things that you care about. You know, a lot of times what we think, when we think about, you know, and I'm thinking of the fundraising space and doing something that we care about, a lot of times we are content to point out an injustice in the world. And then we think that by pointing it out, that somehow serves in lieu of our action, that we don't have to do anything about it because we posted about it. But at the end of the day, if you feel strongly about something, if you feel strongly about righting a wrong, you're never going to regret trying to actually right that wrong. And so whether you're in the personal, you know, development space or in the fitness space, the motivational space, it doesn't matter. Like, you have a following, you have people that look up to you, probably more than even you understand. And if there are certain things in the world that you feel called to help, you just got to do it. And when it takes all of you, that's okay. That might be the magnitude of what you're trying to do. Right? There's always going to be a cost. There's going to be a byproduct of going big in the world. And so don't be afraid to pay that price. It's going to work out. You're going to have more time. You're going to have more chances. You're going to be able to do it again. The possibility of failure is just, it's not a good enough reason to shrink back from the life that you actually want. And so I guess I'll end a case study in epic endeavors on that note. I really thank you guys. If you're still listening 48 minutes into this thing, I really appreciate y'all taking the time, taking this journey with me. Again, everybody that supported the madness, I could not thank you enough. Supported the run, reached out to me, sent me words of encouragement, and again, everybody that supports this show. I appreciate y'all more than you know, and I'll talk to you guys later on Lionheart Radio. Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like Lionheart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track in delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcomed. If you have any comments on the show or would like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshit. So you won't forget this. Midwest nigga be the coldest. Cleveland.